Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another episode of Raw Politics. It is my hope that you are doing fine. I'm also okay. They say that William Ruto has never lost an election. That means that any post he is contested for, he's won that post on the first attempt. How does he do it? Is there a secret charm or is there a playbook that he uses? Well, join me as we look into that. And if you are watching for the first time, kindly consider subscribing so that you are notified whenever we produce these videos. And of course, if you've been a frequent viewer, I thank you a lot and also ask you to subscribe if you are yet to subscribe so that we grow the channel together. Like I said, ladies and gentlemen, William Ruto has won elections successfully all along. Now, I know some of you will come up with, but he did not make Raila president and he did not make Raila the AUC chair. You can be like, those are instances of William losing elections. Technically, it's not true because in 2007, the case where he was supposed to make Raila president, Raila won the election. Martha Karua and others advised Kibaki to stay in power and swore him at night. She was then the justice minister. In the case of AUC, you saw very well that Raila Odinga won in the first and second round, meaning he was the popular candidate. The other person who won because another one stepped down and transferred the votes. And that was geopolitics. William Ruto was expected as the chair of East African Community to condemn Rwanda for what was going on in Congo. But that was impossible for the president because being the chair, you're supposed to be neutral, considering that DRC Congo is also part and parcel of the East African Community, just like Tanzania. It was not going to work well, diplomatically speaking, for the president of Kenya to condemn Rwanda so that you get the SADC vote. So after consulting Raila, I think they said it's not worth it. So when they went there, they won the first round, second round, and then they saw the people who were voting for the SADC starting to vote for the Djibouti guy, and they knew that Ramaphosa and others were trying to revenge. So Raila could have continued. I always tell people Raila could have made sure that the Djibouti guy doesn't win, because in the history of AUC, it has happened before. If you don't get the 2/3 vote, there is no way you can be confirmed. And if Raila insisted that he was going to vie or convince his people not to vote for the Djibouti guy, the election would have been postponed. So in either cases, whether it is 2007 or whether we are working with February of 2025, William Ruto did spectacularly well. Actually, in my opinion, he won those elections also. Back to what I was saying, William Ruto has won elections successfully. The question is, how does he win against all odds? Like in the 2022 election, very few people believed that William Ruto was going to win against a combined force of a sitting president and a very influential opposition leader. William Ruto was not just the underdog. He was declared a loser even before we went into election. I remember the former Prime Minister Raila Odinga with his handlers were already celebrating before votes were counted, because according to every calculation they had, there was no way William Ruto was going to win. I held a different position because my theory, which some of you reject, was that as long as Kalenjin and Kikuyu were together, there is no way William Ruto was going to lose that election. That combination won Uhuru's victory in 2013. It gave him a re-election, a very popular re-election. So I believed that William Ruto was going to win that election. But like I said, I want us to look at what is it that sets William apart. What is it that he does or he possesses that ensures that he does not lose elections? And three things, ladies and gentlemen, come to mind. Number one is prior proper planning. Not just prior planning, but prior proper planning. William Ruto takes time to plan for the future. He looks at scenarios. What would happen when this happens? What do I do in that case? etc. And he doesn't go into these elections with hubris, feeling that the opponent is beneath him. No, he actually goes there as the underdog. So he plans earlier that if I'm going into this election as an underdog, what must I do to win over this powerful person? His first time in politics when he vied for Eldoret North, and he was going against a very powerful Kanu guy. So how did he win? He planned early. During those times, he was mark timing under the likes of Jirongo. He was just studying how politics is played. He wanted to know how does Kanu do their politics, how this campaign done. And so with that proper planning, when he launched his campaign, he was dismissed, but he won that election. William Ruto plans early. Even when he was joining Raila Odinga and they were forming ODM, you saw the strategic way in which he picked Kalenjin from Moi and brought them to Raila Odinga. A very good strategy, but something that took time. He planned that over time. Ladies and gentlemen, at the end of the day, William Ruto delivers. And he delivers because he knows how to plan properly. Whether it was with Uhuru Kenyatta, whether it was going for the seat himself, William Ruto was very strategic. He would plan early and then act later. But planning does help him. I want you to remember that the first thing that makes Ruto a lethal politician is prior proper planning. Even the elections of 2027, I can tell you, he has already looked at all the scenarios and has had contingency here and there. That is why he was telling the likes of Raila that, do you think I'm somebody whose votes can be stolen? And he was going against a very powerful opponent. Remember, a very influential opposition leader like Raila Odinga being supported by the incumbent president. All the state machineries, everything that Raila Odinga wanted was at his disposal. And William Ruto would still go to a rally and say that, do you think I'm somebody who can lose elections? Because he had looked at every other scenario. He had looked at the worst case behind the worst case scenario and had contingencies and plans so that when the time came, he was sure he was winning. And he won. That is why I'm telling you, even in 2027, with this prior proper planning, he will just be re-elected. And those who are claiming that William Ruto cannot get votes anywhere will be shocked the way people were shocked in 2022. The second thing, in my opinion, that helps William Ruto to win is that he is a seriously courageous person. William Ruto is bold. He can do things that people believe he could do. Meaning, he is somebody who can dare take on someone that other politicians would not. How William Ruto handles local competition. He doesn't care who is ganging with who. William Ruto is a very bold and courageous politician. He will always go for it. If he's persuaded it's a good thing, if he has planned for it, he has the courage. Because let me tell you, some politicians can be good planners like William Ruto, but they don't have the courage. You are not bold enough to say, let me give this thing a try. But William Ruto can do that. He has no problem facing his opponents, however huge or complicated they are. I think the third thing that sets William Ruto apart, and I said I will only mention three that comes to mind. The third thing is that William Ruto is extremely focused. And I must use the word ruthless here. He is extremely focused, lesser focused, but very ruthless in execution. So he can plan. He is courageous enough to give it a try. But when it comes to execution, William Ruto doesn't miss. This is what sets him apart. You see, that courage of doing things like saying, I am bold enough to introduce universal health care, something that other presidents have toyed with and have given up on. I am bold enough that I'm going to push on with the affordable housing, something that Uhuru started and abandoned midway. I am bold enough, I will bring that hustler fund. Whether people are mocking it, I will bring it because I want to cushion the people at the bottom of the pyramid. This, ladies and gentlemen, is the courage. But how do you now execute? Because you can be courageous and then you try to execute and it flops. So how does William Ruto end up doing things that people thought would not be done, but then also still getting success out of them? Because there is serious success from the from the subsidized fertilizer. When William Ruto said that I am not going to subsidize Unga, I'm not going to subsidize fuel, I'm not going to subsidize electricity, people were persuaded we were going to collapse as a country. But we did. So how does he do it? I told you it is ruthless focus, meaning he did not just plan for it earlier. He does not just have the courage to do it, but he knows how to do it. Ruthless focus. This is what I want to do. This is how I want to do it. And I can do it in the middle of serious noise. Most of the things that William Ruto get done, whether he's a minister in the higher education, ending the issue of waiting for 2 years before you join university, or whether he's at the ministry and reviving TVETs and deregistering fake colleges in town, whether it's the Minister of Agriculture and winning and being the best performing minister under Kibaki, William's focus is what helps him. Focus. He knows, how do I approach this issue? He has an idea. Have you listened to the president explaining his agenda? He explains his agenda better than even his communication team. If you gave William Ruto a chance to tell you about the new funding model for our universities, you leave that meeting convinced that it is a better one. So that is what works for him. 3 things, ladies and gentlemen. 1, he plans early enough, but not just early enough, properly. Meaning he does what you would call feasibility study, see all the moving parts, have contingencies before he even tries to attack. And then 2, what works for him, he has the courage, the boldness that you need to take on serious tasks, like going into a competition with serious politicians, those who are maybe heavyweight and you are still featherweight. Then, like I told you, he has the know-how. He has that focus. This is what I want to do. This is how we are going to do it. Okay? And it's ruthless. He's not going to stop it. It doesn't matter how much noise you make. So long as William Ruto is convinced that he's doing a good thing, he doesn't care. I remember I was watching Jalango do an interview with Fueneke, and he was saying that what sets William apart, according to him, is that William doesn't care what people will say about what he wants to do, as long as he's been convinced by experts that that thing will be good for Kenyans, majority of Kenyans, moving into the future. Meaning, however much noise you make about demanding subsidies, if the economic experts tell him that subsidies are not sustainable and it will only continue putting us in debt, that we should subsidize production instead of consumption, then he doesn't care whether people are on the roads with sufuria on their head. He will not reintroduce subsidies, no matter what. So that focus, that ability to fix your mind on something and get it done, is why you now see people coming and saying, oh, while I don't like Ruto, SHA works. Or the vice chancellors at the university are like, wow, this new funding model has helped me. Now I can pay all my staff, the lecturers on time, etc. Dying universities are being revived. Even privately owned universities that were owed billions are starting to have a breather. Why? Because the man was convinced this is the best route. It's not the popular route. That is why William Ruto says there are tough decisions that are supposed to be made in this country. Other presidents have shied away from making those tough decisions. I will make those tough decisions and pay the price. He doesn't care. As long as it is going to help people. That is the focus that sets Ruto apart. And when people see this in a man, then they trust him enough to vote for him. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope whatever I shared is of value. If you agree with me that William Ruto has won elections and perhaps these three things is why he's such a prolific winner, let me know in the comment section. If you have a different opinion, it's okay. I want to hear also your views. Like I said, this is a conversation. I share my views. You can also interact via the comment section. And like I said, I read all the comments. All. I may not respond to all, but I read all the comments. I read them. Some I even read twice. And I read all the comments. Whether they differ with me, whether they agree with me, I read all the comments. So let me just know what your views are on this topic about why Ruto does win all his elections. And if you've not subscribed, please consider subscribing so that we grow the channel together. Otherwise, if you want to know why William Ruto is the president Kenya needed, not what Kenya wanted, the president that Kenya needed, watch this video.